exciting, you bet it is. The Friday edition of the What's New show with a surprise guest. Here's Nancy Nelson, Warren Martin, and Gil Amundsen New.
Very happy Friday morning to you, and welcome to What's New. We do have some really good things ahead for you here today on What's New. Among other things, an opportunity to visit with Mr. B. Mr. Billy Eckstine is the surprise guest that Mel was referring to. Great gentleman, incredible performer, and he's now appearing here in the Twin Cities at Diamond Jim's brand new, reopened club. Exciting performer and gentleman looking forward to visiting him.
A living legend. Later in the program, our friend Monty Krizan. He's a professional educator with Reptiles. Today, a group of children are here, and you'll see just what that is all about. Right now, I want you to meet this little boy. This is Nico. Nico is a Springer and a Shepherd cross. He's only 7 months old, which means he's still a puppy and kind of excited.
Still got a lot of puppy left in him.
Yeah.
Generally, they figure a puppy is about 6 months, even up to a year, when they become a full adult. But he's got a lot of sparkle, a lot of pizzazz. This is a neat dog.
And what's particularly sad about Nico, he's been in a kennel at the Humane Society since last August. So he's been there quite a while, which means he needs a little extra patience just to help him remember his house training and settle him down a little bit. They get so excited to see people when they've been in a kennel for a while, you know.
And if you'd like more information, you can contact the Humane Society at 522-4325 or stop by. Oh, hello, Nico. That's okay,
Come
partner.
on.
How you doing here?
I told you he got excited, but he's a sweet
Right now,
boy.
it's time for Gil Anderson to report to you what's new.
Good morning. Despite our weather, cloudy showers, windy, dropping temperatures, all of that expected for the Twin Cities before the day is out, and we'll explain it a bit more later. News Center 11 at 5:30 this afternoon. Right now, more with Nancy and Warren and a small friend.
Thank you, Gil. Things could be much worse. We were reminiscing earlier here with Billy Eckstine about an appearance that he had many years ago in Duluth, and they said the high is going to be 24 and the low is going to be 40, and they meant 40 below. So that's still coming ahead here.
Look at this beautiful little friend. You can't imagine a dog more calm or sweet. It's a male, a purebred Pekingese. He was found in the Pierce and Butler Pryor area in St. Paul. He was injured, has been taken to a vet, is perfectly all right now, but frankly just seems a little unhappy that nobody loves him. They estimate he's about 5 years old, and he sure needs a home.
So he's a docile and quiet little pet. Make a good family household pet for someone.
Just a sweetie. In a moment, the remarkable Billy Eckstine. Stay with us.
There have been a few performers that have become literally legends in their own time. That sounds like something you were talking about, a boxing prize fighter or something. But there have been a few performers. It's a great pleasure to welcome one of them here today on What's New, Mr. Billy Eckstine.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good to have you with us here, Billy.
I thought you were going to say a legend in my own mind.
No, hardly. You have been performing for a little while.
47th, this is my 47th year.
That's unbelievable, Mr. Eckstine. What on
Billy.
earth... Thank you. What on earth makes you a survivor when so many of those 47 years have come and gone and we don't even remember who they are?
Well, I guess maybe you would have to have guts in order to stay out there that long.
Talent helps.
Yeah, well, sometimes. But I enjoy it. And it's, you know, it's a matter of, a lot of your success is a matter of luck, too, also, because I know there's a lot of great performers that have come along right along with me, and they're not around anymore.
Is part of that the ability, and you've been described as someone who has the great ability to tell a story musically. Do you consider that a strong point in your...
Well, I think, well, that could help some because, you know, songs are, or you have to relate a song. It's more or less a happening that somebody, either the writer or whoever gets in their mind to write this particular type of a song. It's a story, it may be of a long-lost love or long-lost wife or something like that.
Have you had particularly favorite composers that have put together songs for you?
Oh, yes. Duke Ellington is one of my favorites. George Gershwin, of course, and Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein. And then a lot of the young composers now are doing great jobs, such as Barry Manilow, Stevie Wonder. They're writing very good things now.
Since 1933, you've worked with probably everybody in the business, and the business has changed so much. Did you start in a vaudeville situation?
No, I started out Well, originally, I started singing when I was about 9 years old in a boys' choir at the Holy Cross Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is originally my home. And then I went to school in Washington, D.C., and I won an amateur show there in Washington while I was still in school. And from then on, I just thought it was a pretty easy way to make a living, but how wrong I was.
Sometimes I know I have responded with kind of a stock answer. They say, well, how did you get into this business? My response is, well, I'm not really bright enough to make one with my brain, and I'm too lazy to make one with my back, and the only thing left is my mouth, which is kind of a cop-out, but it's not a bad way to make a living, is it?
It really is, and you know, I've been asked that same thing. People say, well, how do you get started in this business? When really there is no blueprint for it. It's got to be the right place at the right time, or stick-to-itiveness, or whatever thing you want to call it, you know.
You are now, of course, at Diamond Jim's, which is reopened with our good friend,
and
Mr.
if I may say something about Diamond Jim's, it's I understand that it was open before, but now there's new owners that have it, and where before it only seated around 350, something like that. Now it seats 500. And it's beautiful, good food. Everything about it is good. I'm looking forward to coming back again.
You are going to be coming back again.
Back in the spring, yeah.
And he's there, of course, yet tonight, Friday and Saturday night. You can call them for reservations. Tell me, of all those that you've worked with, who stands out? What few stand out, and why?
Oh, gee, there's so many great talents that I have been associated with. I worked along with Lena Horne and Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. And then the bands I've been with, I've worked with Count Basie, Stan Kent, Woody Herman, Duke Ellington. My God, just about everybody.
Pretty good company. You also have some pretty good company in your pianist that has been with you a little while.
Well, Bobby Tucker is my pianist, and Bobby has been with me now for 31 years. And he's been in the business for 38 years, and he's only had 2 jobs. He was with Billie Holiday for 7 years, and then he's been with me for the last 31.
We said that you're going to be back here in the spring, but don't wait till the spring to go see him. He's at Diamond Jim's, and we have a phone number that we can pass along to you. Of course, it's a private club, but they have reduced the membership fee now, so it's a modest fee for an individual, family, or corporation. You can give them a call, and they'll be happy to give you all the information. The number is 457-6610. Now, before you get back here again, there's a pretty good lineup of some other guests. Do you mind if I just run down?
Sure, run them down.
They include people like Bobby Goldsboro, David Fry, The Fifth Dimension, Donna Fargo, Phyllis Diller, Ray Charles, the amazing Riskin, Sherry Lewis, Robert Goulet on New Year's Eve. Wow.
And what's important right now, Friday and Saturday night, the one and only Billy Eckstine. What a privilege to have you on our show,
Thank
sir.
you. It's very nice
Thank
of
you for coming.
Oh, yes. Immediately following me is Al Martino.
Oh, yeah?
With a 18-piece orchestra.
Thank you, Mr. Eckstine.
Thank you.
You stay right where you are. You get to meet some snakes. How do you feel about that?
Good night, folks.
Monty Krizan in just a minute. Well, when you're with children, and we'll show you a phone number, by the way, because Monty brings his shows to children's groups, church, schools, all over. So today, we have a cub troop from Crystal, a Girl Scout troop. No, these are brownies from, help me, ladies, North St. Paul, and Monty Krizan, they're all yours.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, and what we'd like to do today is, we don't have a lot of time, so what we're going to do is take a look at about 4 lizards that we brought to the studio, and then we have a couple of snakes, and we have a big turtle we're going to discuss too. One of the reasons I go around and talk to people about reptiles is that reptiles don't have very good reputations, and that's mainly based because people would rather tell lies than the truth about these guys. And the truth of the matter is that most of the reptiles that live in the world are totally harmless, and there are a few that deserve our respect, but we don't have to be afraid of them. And 3 of them are right in front of us. This is the Gila monster, and this guy over here is the Mexican beaded lizard, and this is a black Mexican beaded lizard. Now, these represents the Heloderma family, and they're found in Arizona, the Gila monster in California, Mexico with the Mexican beaded, and Central America. They're the only lizards in the world that are poisonous. They have a gland in their lower jaw that kind of gets mixed in with their saliva, this toxin. Helps them to catch their food, and they have a vice-like bite And one of the reasons we don't have to be afraid of these lizards biting me is the fact that they've grew up with me and they really don't want to. You wouldn't want to just tease them or anything like that, but as long as you keep your hand away from their mouth, they can usually tell the difference between your hand and a mouse. That's what they eat, is mice. This is our Gila monster from the United States, Arizona and California. Not very many of them found anymore. And this guy here is the Mexican beaded lizard from central Mexico. He gets about as big as this black one here, but he's colored slightly different. And this is a very rare creature. This is a black Mexican beaded lizard. I'd like to come around now, and if you guys want to reach out and touch him on the back, you'll see that his skin is like beads. It's very, very durable. So the sharp rock that he lives on, he won't cut his skin. And coming out here now is one of our favorite fellas. He is a most famous lizard. This is Thibaut. He's a rhino iguana from Haiti and the Dominican Republic, not taking any chances. He's a prehistoric looking lizard. He lives on a lot of gray rock, and that's probably why he's colored the way he is. If you'll notice, there's pieces of skin falling off him here and there. That's because lizards shed a little bit as they go. Snakes shed their skin all at once. Now, he wears a collar simply to let people know he's friendly. He likes to eat fruits and vegetables. Now, whenever I'm talking to a large audience in a school, I try to make this point very evident. I found out if I feed them good food, if they put good food in their mouth and it winds up in their stomach, then they're healthier and they live longer. I think people are the same way. And I think sometimes we eat things that are not necessarily too good for us. A candy bar or a cookie's okay once in a while, but you can't grow up on it. This is Thibaut, and maybe when we're done off the air, all you people can come up and scratch him on the back after the show's over. This is a very famous lizard, been on a lot of television shows, Nancy's show a lot, and Warren's, and he's quite a character. This is a reptile that lives in the water. This is an alligator snapping turtle. This is probably the most primitive reptile left alive on Earth. He's unchanged in time, and one of the reasons he didn't have to change is he's completely equipped to exist. Now, most turtles eat a lot of dead things in the water. Our common snapping turtle in Minnesota is a great scavenger. This guy does too, but what he'd rather do is fish. Now, when he opens his mouth, you'll notice that there's like a worm-like looking fella on the bottom. That's his tongue. He makes it look like a worm, and then he wiggles it back and forth, and he actually lures fish right into his mouth. This one here weighs a little over 100 pounds. We recently had a big 200-pounder pass away on us. He had a congenital heart problem. We had an autopsy done on him. This is one guy that you got to treat with a lot of respect. You don't want to let him get a hold of you. He could really take your arm off of your hand. In here, we have probably the most interesting reptile, and those are snakes. Let me get this one up here. Okay, around my neck is a python, and in front of you is a boa constrictor. Now, many people think snakes are wet and slimy and dirty, but in reality they are very, very dry. And the shine of this snake is really letting us know that it's healthy. That's because the rats that it eats are fed a good diet too, and remember I was talking about that earlier. The better diet we eat, the healthier we are. This little python's only about 1.5 years old. This boa constrictor is probably 5 years old. Now, the main difference between boa constrictors and pythons is that pythons are hatched and boas are born alive. Now, boa constrictors get 10 or 12 feet long, but the biggest snake in the world is its close relative, the anaconda, which is a water boa from South America. These pythons get very big. On the show previous to this, we've had Mick and Garbage Can, and Mick is the mother of this snake right here. They both weigh over 200 pounds, and they're 16 feet long. Are there any questions you guys like to ask me about what we've looked at? Yeah. Why don't you ask me one? Everybody forgot their questions. Yes, in the back.
How long do the animals live?
Okay, well, the average reptile lives about 25 years, and in some cases, like the big turtle, it's probably 75 to 100. But if you do a good job of taking care of them, and they always get the proper care, and they're not under stress a lot, they like where they're at, they probably live to be 30 or 40 years old. Yes?
Are those warm or cold-blooded?
Very good question. All reptiles are cold-blooded. And that means if they were to lie out here on this cabinet, on this box top, for a period of time, and the temperature was 70 degrees where my hand is, well, then these snakes would eventually become 70 degrees. That's why reptiles come out in the morning and bask in the sun, is to take on solar energy and get their body ready to go so they can go out and hunt and eat.
Can you train up?
Well, you don't really train them. A lot of people say, how did you teach your snakes to be this way? I didn't. What I did is when I raised them, I made sure nobody teased them, and I made sure nobody hurt them, and they never had to defend themselves. See, a snake that we find, we should remember this. Today we're looking at tame snakes, and when we go home next spring and the snakes come out, well, then we're going to have to be careful not to go over and just try to pick one up like you could this one. You guys can also pet these snakes when the program's over with. Maybe a couple you want to come up here and just put your hand on it right now. Not everybody. But we got to remember that in our backyard, when we find a snake, we can't go over and pick it up because that snake would probably be afraid of us and probably bite us because he wouldn't be used to us. That's why you can be around these snakes, is that they're used to people. Does anybody know what a snake smells with and tastes with? Yeah.
His tongue?
Very good. He sticks his tongue in and out. It's like it kind of feels his way around, smells his way around, and tastes his way around. Snakes don't have ears, so they can't hear, but they feel sound. And to illustrate that, when you go home today, turn the stereo way loud and put the bass way up and get across the room, and you'll be able to feel the music too. That's what a snake does. He feels sound, whereas a lizard, like Tebow, he still has ears and he can hear. One more question? Yeah.
How old do they usually live?
Oh, but that question was asked before, and I said like 25 years would be an average, but a lot of the snakes, a lot of the turtles and alligators live to be older.
Monty Krizan, we have a phone number. Tell us again. It's 432...
432-2903.
And it's Monty's Traveling Reptile Show. He does this all over the United States, and we're lucky that he lives right here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for helping today. Monty, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you. We'll be right back. That face, that fabulous face. Who would ever have thought so many years ago that the world would come to know Big Bird on Sesame Street, on ice skates, and of course he is the creation of the Hensons, Jim and Jane, and it's such a pleasure to meet half of the team that gave the world the beautiful gift of the Muppets.
Oh, well, the overall Muppet group, of course, is Jim's, but like Big Bird was made by Kermit Love and is worked by Carol Spinney, and so it's really the creation of the people working it. And Big Bird is very special. He's very beautiful to look at, and I'm really glad that people are going to have a chance to see him in real life with his beautiful yellow feathers.
Tell us a little about the Muppets. Many of us simply recognize that the Muppets have been with us forever. That's not exactly true, but you go back quite a ways, and I think they started when Jim, your husband, was still in college.
Just out of high school he really started. He made Kermit when he was 18 years old, and we've been working steadily for about 25 years.
Kermit is interesting because his origins were less than beautiful to begin with, weren't they?
Well, I think the first Kermit was the most beautiful. Jim made the first Kermit himself out of an old coat of his mother's.
And originally, they started more as creatures rather than specific animals.
Yes, they were. We considered them creatures, each with a different kind of personality. And it's wonderful to be able to bring them out of their boxes where they've been stored for years and years and give them a new life so everyone can see how they looked in the beginning.
That beginning was 25 years ago in Washington, D.C. Jim Henson and his new wife Jane did everything. Today there are over 300 people involved in making the Muppet Kingdom a reality, a kingdom that includes Sesame Street, a television program, and movies. The Muppet audience is worldwide. What are the Muppets made out of?
Well, they of course are made out of different materials, but what we use mostly now is a styrofoam and foam that comes in blocks, and then most of them are carved, sculpted with scissors into shape, and then some of them are flocked on top of that. Some of them are covered with fur fabric, with fleecing of different sorts. Of course, some of the larger monster characters have the long fur, and of course, wonderful. Bird has wonderful, magnificent ostrich feathers all over him. The most exciting projects are the ones that you can repeat. Like if you work on Sesame Street, you can have a chance to do that same character over and over again, and so the character has a chance to grow. I'm sure that we would never have found Piggy in 1 or 2 appearances. She had to emerge and develop over a period of time, and that's true of Grover and certainly true of Kermit. He's emerged over years and years, and Gonzo, silly little Gonzo, certainly started out as not much of a personality and has grown into this wonderful wild character who does all those mad things that we all want to do, and he fails and he doesn't care and he goes ahead and does the next mad thing. The feelings and the things that you want to do with the Muppets are pretty much the same now as when we began. And we're thrilled that so many people have responded to it and loved it. And all the people who work on the puppets and build them and perform them, there's a wonderful kind of magic about all of it. And I think the audiences pick it up as a kind of a wonderful living magic and respond very warmly. Well, it is very childlike, but it's the childlike quality that we like to think is in all of us, or that we know is in all of us and we like to make use of, and so we would like to respect that in all adults too, the playfulness and childlikeness.
They bring you joy. I sense you feel a great love for them.
Oh yes, well I think everyone that works on feels that way, and I have the feeling as I listen to people who watch them in the audiences, I have the feeling that the audiences, happily enough, understand them and enjoy them with just as much sophistication and deep understanding as any of the people working on them, and I think that's very thrilling. Now that the Muppet Show has had a chance to go into a lot of countries all around the world, we find that even as they're redubbed into other languages and everything, that they reach a common point in all people, not just Americans, but in all people. And I think that's what we thought in the beginning when we first started this, that there was something that was in common with all people, that this kind of childlike fantasy done with respect and care and would touch everyone, and that everyone would respond to it, and it would fill a certain need or desire in everyone, and it seems to have done that, and we hope that we stay true to that response.
The dream has come true. Is it good?
This dream has been an ongoing dream, and it's always been good.
Those of you who are old enough to remember well the voice of Al Martino on radio and on records. He had some big hits beginning in the early 50s, then we stopped hearing about him for a while. In the 60s, we heard him again, then we saw him in the movie The Godfather as Frankie Fontaine. Now, of course, doing a lot of important things. He's also in Minnesota, entertaining at Diamond Jim's beginning Tuesday and then through Saturday night. Welcome to the Twin Cities.
Well, nice to be here.
Nice to see you.
I've been to Minneapolis and St. Paul before, but never worked here. It's the first time I've ever had a job here to work, and I'm looking forward to it. I've been in the business now since 1952, and I don't believe I worked here. I just can't remember.
That's incredible, because usually anyone who's been around that long ends up doing the circuit, don't they?
Well, if anybody out there thinks that I worked here, please let me know. I mean, I'd like to find out.
You know, it's funny you would say that, but people who don't know what it is to be a performer on the road don't recognize what you're saying. I mean, literally, a road manager will tell you, Frankie, it's
right.
Monday and you're
That's
in...
right. One-nighters.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of one-nighters. I mean, I've gone right through Canada, and sometimes I've forgotten what city I was in. I mean, that's how fast we've got to move. Vancouver or Calgary, you know, so many places. And we do a lot of one-nighters here in the United States as well.
Sure.
The most important thing, I'm here at Diamond Jim's, and Dick Maw is a wonderful guy, and we get along just fine, and I'd like to see my fans out there, people that have bought my records and heard my records on the radio, for the next 5 or 6 days.
That's right, Tuesday through Saturday
Yes.
night. Your parents, you were born in Philadelphia, your parents were immigrants from Italy,
Yes.
came here before you were born. And your father was a bricklayer, and for some time in your life you worked construction and did bricklaying with the family, didn't you?
Well, we worked for a very, very big firm in Philadelphia, John B. Kelly. It was Princess Grace's father. We worked for him when I first came out of the service. My father was a foreman on his job for quite a long time, and then he went into business for himself. When I came out of the armed forces, then I joined my father and we started our own company going. But at the beginning of my singing career, I held two jobs. One as a construction worker, in which I liked. I thought it was good, except that I didn't like the cold weather too much. I mean, I found it very difficult working in the cold weather. And so I would move every now and then to Florida and try to get a job down there. Then the singing profession came along, and I thought that's what I wanted. And then, of course, one job had to be let go. And obviously, it was my singing job.
In fact, you did leave singing for a while.
I did.
You disappeared from the scene for a while. I think went back into construction work for a time,
Yes, I went to
didn't you?
Europe. I lived in Europe until 1959. I worked at the Palladium, singing, and all over the provinces of Great Britain and Europe. But when I came back to the United States, I found it difficult reinstating myself as a recording artist because, you know, there's an old saying, out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
And
yes.
there was a new sound that just came in. Elvis Presley was a pretty big star. You had the rock and roll, which was being now popular. But Dick Clark was a good friend of mine. I knew Dick for many years when he was in radio, before he went into television at WFIL in Philadelphia. So I called up Dick and I said, Dick, I'm back in America. I've got a record out. I'd like to get plugged. He says, come on the show. And then Alan Freed, remember Alan Freed?
Yes,
who was the rock and roll king.
I tell you, when you sit around with a man like Al Martino, you're talking about, as you pointed out, nearly 30 years of profession. There's
28.
a lot. 28.
Every year
a
is
lot to
important
talk
now.
about. Mario Lanza being a childhood friend. The important thing is you see him on stage Tuesday through Saturday night at Diamond Jim's.
Please.
How very nice to meet you.
Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Al Martino, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in just a minute.